All right, let's just jump right in. Think about the last time you actually used a paper map. I mean, for real. Probably been years, right? Well, so many companies are still trying to navigate today's super chaotic business world with a strategy that's pretty much just as static and outdated. So in this explainer, we're going to look at what it takes to switch from that old paper math to a dynamic, real-time, strategic GPS.
So, just how aligned are most companies? Well, if you ask executives, they think they're doing great. They estimate alignment is over 80%. But here's the reality check from a Harvard Business Review study. The real number is a shocking 23%. That is a massive gap between what leaders think is happening and what's actually going on.
And that really brings us to the core question we have to answer, doesn't it? Why is there such a huge disconnect between the strategy that gets talked about in the boardroom and the actual work people are doing every day? Where is the breakdown happening? So let's get into it. To fix this disconnect, we first have to get a handle on the totally chaotic environment we're all working in. Because, let's be honest, the old rulebook, it's been completely thrown out the window. The term you really need to know is VUCA. It actually comes from the US Army, and it just perfectly describes our world today. You've got volatility, meaning things are changing super fast, uncertainty, so you can't predict what's next, complexity with a million interconnected parts, and ambiguity, where things are just not clear. Traditional strategic planning was never, ever built for this kind of reality. This slide just lays out the whole shift perfectly. On the left, you've got the old way, the static paper map strategy. You know the one, created once a year and basically obsolete the second it's printed. But on the right, you have the new way, a dynamic, real-time GPS. It's not about trying to predict the future anymore. It's all about being adaptive, constantly sensing what's on the road ahead and rerouting based on what's actually happening. Okay, but here's the thing. Even the smartest GPS needs a destination. In this chaotic VUCA world, you still need a solid foundation, an anchor that holds you steady no matter how wild the storm gets. Let's break down the 3 key things that give you that stability. First up is your mission. This is your why. It's the answer to that fundamental question. Why do we even exist as an organization? This is the core purpose that guides every single decision you make. Next, you've got your vision. This is your destination, the where you're telling your GPS to go. It's that clear, compelling picture of the future that you're all working together to create. And finally, your core values. Think of these as your rules of the road. These aren't just some nice-sounding words on a poster. They are the non-negotiable principles that guide how your team behaves and helps you make those tough calls when you hit an unexpected roadblock. You know, this quote from the Bartzell Group just sums it up perfectly. Before you can even think about navigating all this complexity with a dynamic GPS, you have to have this foundational clarity. Your mission, your vision, and your values, they are the essential roadmap that makes the whole journey possible in the first place. Okay, so we have our anchor. Now, how do we actually connect that big picture foundation to the day-to-day work? Well, that's where strategic alignment comes in. You can think of it as the engine that powers the entire vehicle, turning those high-level goals into real, coordinated action on the ground. And believe me, getting this right pays off big time. According to McKinsey, companies with strong alignment aren't just a little bit better off, they see 30% higher profitability and deliver 3 times the shareholder returns compared to everyone else. This isn't some soft, fuzzy concept. It is a hard, competitive advantage. So if it's so great, why is alignment so hard to achieve? Well, it's usually these common roadblocks getting in the way. Leaders can't really see what's going on. Nobody's sure who owns what. And teams are all working in their own separate silos. All of this creates a massive perception gap. I mean, look at this stat. One report found that almost twice as many leaders as employees think change is being managed well. That is a textbook disconnect right there. And there's no single one-size-fits-all way to fix this. For example, you can drive alignment from the top down, kind of like Apple does, to make sure their brand is super consistent. Or you could build it from the bottom up, like Google does, to encourage innovation from the front lines. Or you could do a hybrid approach, like Starbucks, which has to balance a global brand with local tastes. The key is picking the model that actually fits your company's culture. All right, now we get to the real heart of the modern approach. Let's pull all these pieces together into a playbook that's specifically designed to execute strategy not in some stable, predictable environment, but right in the middle of chaos. This is it, the adaptive strategy cycle. And it's not some linear plan. It's a continuous loop. First, you sense what's changing out there. Then you frame what those changes mean for you. You decide on an agile move. You act with a quick, small experiment. And then, and this is the most crucial part, you reflect, you learn from it, and you start the cycle all over again. This loop is the real-time, rerouting function of your strategic GPS in action.
So, to wrap things up, we have to talk about the single most powerful force that's reshaping strategy today, artificial intelligence. Because this isn't just another tool. It's fundamentally changing the game of how we plan and compete.
The really critical insight here, which Gartner highlighted, is that AI strategy can't just be an afterthought anymore. It absolutely has to be a two-way street. Your main business strategy has to inform your AI investments, for sure. But just as importantly, your new AI capabilities need to be actively reshaping your core business strategy.
Let me be crystal clear about this. The first step is using AI to do things better. That's fine. But the real transformation, the absolute game-changing move, is letting AI help you do new things. It's about letting AI capabilities totally reshape your direction as a company, uncovering business models you couldn't even have imagined before. That's the moment AI stops being just a tool and becomes a true strategic partner.
So, that leaves all of us with one last question to think about. Take a really honest look at your own organization's approach. Are you still trying to navigate with a dusty, outdated paper map? Or are you building a dynamic, intelligent GPS that can guide you confidently into whatever the future holds? Because that choice is what will define who wins and who gets left behind.